Welcome to this week's episode of L.I.F.T.S. We're here, Times Square, New York City.
Yeah, it's the center of the world, some might say. New Yorkers don't really like it, but here we are, Beyond Activ's first event. It's been a good one.
So I was looking forward to it, wondering what the event was going to hold, because it's the first time they've done it in the US. I think Ross and the team did a fantastic job at putting a pretty good group of heavy hitters.
I think they brought together a good audience. What I like about this is looking at a lot of other events, they have people from not just the US, but both vendors and suppliers from around the world. And there's an international audience. You had Saudi Arabia, you had South America. Just look at the meetings we had. People from Europe, you have people from America. So it was just really diverse, very well represented. In a lot of sense, it's what New York is about, isn't it? It's about this melting pot being kind of like the central area, the central hub for not just the US, but also the world. And I think New York has really, I mean, there's some other cities that might compete for, but it's really become the innovative center for healthcare, I would say, for fitness, for wellness, and other categories related to wellness. Was LA, but I think a lot of that has shifted to New York. So we've seen a lot of new modalities, and a lot of that was represented at the conference.
What would you say are some of the things that stood out, topics or themes or ideas that you got from the last couple of days?
I mean, coming into this, I really expected to hear a lot about women's health, a lot about Pilates, which you and I seem to hear about every single day, AI, healthcare, we talked about strength. I think those trends have still held true. It's kind of, we got a lot of what we expected, but I think my view, I certainly came out of these 2 days a lot more informed about those specific areas, but I kind of knew that these were going to be the general themes.
I know I say this a lot, but there were some fantastic interviews. There's no fluff. It's really great content, so I recommend you listen to this episode and also the second one, because we had to break it up into two because we had so much to really so much to talk and share about. And if you do enjoy these and get anything from it, there is a lot of work that goes into them. We're motivated to continue to pull these together, but what we do need is just share it with one or two people so we can get this information out to more people. So hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for listening.
So to wrap up day one, we've got Adam Sedlack, CEO of UFC Gyms. And Adam, we were just talking about this event in Vegas that UFC put on, spent $20 million on the event. And Matthew, you were saying that it's like the future of sport and what you imagine sport to be like.
Well, it was like watching a movie in the future, one of these sort of space age movies, and then they're imagining or sort of like creating what that future thing would look like, and it was just there happening. It was so bizarre.
It was augmented reality, and when you're in the space and you feel the environment, it's not just seeing the environment, you feel the environment. And this was the crazy thing. As I'm watching it, one of the videos on the screen was fall, where leaves were coming down the trees. They actually put real leaves, and they felt that real leaves fell on you as you're sitting there watching the fight. It was. I mean, Dana again.
They had haptic chairs as well, didn't they?
Everything.
So you're feeling the stuff in the seats.
For those of you that were Star Trek fans, old guys like us, when we watched it when we were younger, it's almost like you went into that virtual reality room, augmented reality.
Hologram.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And you immersed yourself within that room, and you felt like you were part of the experience. It was like, again, nothing I've ever seen, but the amount of detail, the amount of work that Dana and the UFC team had to put into that was next level. I mean, it probably, and I don't know the exact estimate, but I'm willing to bet it was like 10 fights worth of work into that one fight.
Wow.
Amazing.
What did you think about the headline fight? Sugar Sean, like that was, my kids are just like, they both went with t-shirts. Yeah. They just love him. And he just got pretty much mauled.
Yeah, the guy that beat him is the most unique style fighter. You don't know what angle he's coming at you from. And from a chemistry perspective, I don't know if that's a great matchup for Sean.
No.
Right? Sean needs a guy, because Sean's fast and quick. He needs a guy that wants to be on his feet and just swing with him. Not a guy that's going to grind you and take you to the ground. And he was a big square guy.
Yeah.
And he just cut Sean off on all the angles. I mean, the guy, I don't know who beats him. I don't know
Before
who
it
beats them.
came on, you kind of almost knew, it almost like this Khabib camp that just have this, they all seem to have a very similar style.
They're bears. They're all bears.
And they seem to get you down, and you just can't, and it's done. It's like crazy. I'd be interested to see how that. I'd love to see them fight each other. I think that would be more of an interesting fight, but I don't think that happens, does it?
That won't happen. That won't happen.
So I'm curious, do you find, and we've never had a chance to like chat or work together, but I obviously know of UFC gyms, but do you find that when you have a big event like that, that attention to your gym website also increases because of that event?
Yeah. Listen, anytime the 3 letters have distribution, whether it's through mainstream media or MMA chat rooms or whatever it is, it helps us. It creates alignment, credibility. It helps drive SEO. It does all sorts of things. It creates a conversation for us. Now, it's still up to us to take advantage of the conversation, right? If we don't go out there and try to get the information, get the data, and bring it into our clubs, then we're not maximizing the potential. But if we're alert to it, we're sensitive to it, we set up the right Google alerts, and we look at who's having UFC events in their trade areas and how UFC is driving the social media aspect. We reshare it and integrate it so it hits our 4 walls. It can be incredibly impactful.
So looking back at 2024, I know all gyms have kind of been through a journey the last couple of years.
Yes.
What has this year been like? But you're also hearing positive things coming out of it. What has this year been like? What is the year shaping up to be? What are you looking forward to in 2025?
Listen, it was arguably the most challenging personal year for me as a leader. And there's some things that were non-controllable or uncontrollable, and there were some things that were controllable. But the climate around capital completely changed, right? For gyms and just businesses in general. And so I was dealing with a little bit of that adversity from a private equity perspective. We were able to get through that and get on the other side of that and kind of relaunch the organization in a very lean, clean way. And we're better for it. And I think the word that I have for 2024 is adaptability. What worked in 2012 does not work in 2024. And you can blame it on all sorts of things, or you can lean into it and try to make it work for you. So listen, we know 8 or 9 out of 10 clubs opening in today's world are low-cost gyms, right? The days of being able to take your average price point in a general gym to $80, $90 a month, those days are gone. Mm-hmm. They're either going to be in your trade area, or if they're not, they're going to be there soon. And so the key is you have to be adaptable based on your value proposition to price your gym the right way to speak to the consumer that has reassessed the value of what a membership price point is. 20 years ago, the consumer thought the price point was different than it is today. I call it the Planet Fitness effect. You can call it whatever you want. The fact is, it works. It works for low costs, and you got to give them all the credit in the world. And so it forced some of the gyms that were in the mid-range or even high price point or high premium to take a look at their model to be in position to be able to both speak to that low-cost member, but then also still offer a premium proposition to allow the consumer just a different journey than maybe you could find in a low-cost model. You see, if, with all due respect to Planet Fitness, who's the big dog in that space, you go in, you know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to be able to, sign up for $15 a month and maybe get your black card, whatever it is nowadays, 29 or 28, whatever it might be. Well, I'm going to be able to say, hey, I'll offer you this low-cost play, and I'll get similar to the rates that you're doing with Planet if you just want to work out and do what you do at Planet. But if you want to take classes, if you want to do recovery, if you want to do these different challenges that we have, if you want to participate in our champion room, if you want to do those things, you can add them onto your membership at any time, or you can take them away. So what we want to do is just add this incremental value proposition points that maybe low-cost gyms don't have to be able to give a consumer a different look, a different feel, and a different environment to get the results that they're looking for.
I think it's an interesting space in the industry, and you look at the price of low cost. I just got a double espresso downstairs, $5. So most people have one of those a day, and they're gone in a second. If you look at the price for a month's worth of a membership, it's extremely low. Some would say like it's maybe too low for what they deliver. Certainly at the top end, you can see the prices going up quite significantly with some of these premium offerings. But it seems in the middle, there's this struggle to the low costs are really forcing that price point down, but difficult to create enough unique differentiation to sort of push it up to the level maybe it needs to be. When you see what Dana did, like he went up against, there's a world title boxing fight going on exactly the same night. I believe the pay-per-views are a different price for the Sphere. The tickets, a lot more expensive. And so what he seems to have done with essentially it's a sport is creating this crazy experience that just gets everybody to look at it, being extremely innovative with lots of different parts of it. How do you see that with businesses like yourself? Do you feel that maybe, and I'm not saying doing it exactly the same way, but maybe more creativity and innovation from the experience perspective and also what you deliver could sort of create this different space in the market where you're still getting value for money, but we're sort of getting out of the fact that it's almost like become commoditized?
Yeah, it's a great question, and let's compare it to the UFC. So if you look at the Sphere event, right? Yes, Dana invested a ton of money. He put a ton of manpower in it. And let me tell you, from my observations being with Dana, his eye for detail is next level, which helps you create events like that. But let's take a step back for a second. If you want to watch the fight for free, you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And you watch it with a community of people. If you want to watch it at home, you pay that $125 to watch it at home. It's not quite as expensive as going to the fight. And if you want to do the premium, you go watch it at the Sphere, right? And you pay the $2,000 to get into the Sphere. And so UFC gyms basically copying that same playbook, right? If you want to just come in and do what you do at Planet Fitness, do it. I'll take $24 a month for that, no problem. If you want to take advantage of the Pure brand, the things that help you get the most amount of results, the things that when I do my daily ultimate training class, or I go on the cryotherapy, or I work with a personal trainer, or I participate in a challenge, or I have nutritional counseling, whatever it is that are the value proposition points that aren't available at the competition, you could do that as well. It's up to you as a consumer. What I know, what I firmly believe in, the members that go in and just buy memberships to do a bench press leave much quicker and much faster. The members that go in and buy PT or buy recovery or participate in the challenges, there's an emotional connection in the community that gets them to stay longer, it gets them better results, but more importantly, there's peer-to-peer pressure that creates that retention. And so the mistake prior that I made personally was having a slight arrogance to think that the same number of people are going to join on a lower price point of $60 a month that I used to get 15 years ago. That's just not the case anymore. I mean, listen, low-cost gyms are building bigger than ever before. There's some that are out there in Texas that are 85, 100,000 square feet now that are charging $10 a month and have 25,000 members. And again, it's educated the consumer base that that's what a gym costs. So you got to be in that conversation, no matter what brand you are, with exception of maybe Lifetime and Equinox, right? Lifetime has obviously carved its own niche with the condos and developments that they've done. I think Equinox is a different conversation. Everybody else, you have to play the game. You have to play the game that you're in the conversation on the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel with that consumer that thinks the value of a gym is $10 to $15.
So that's become this entry point now that the industry's kind of got to be in that ballpark.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, which is, right? It's a good point, but when you look at the data, consumers are now spending a bigger share of wallet on wellness, but they're allocating less of it to the actual thing that they go visit 3, 4, 5, 7 times a week.
Yep.
Right. So that number, it's all how you value. Like you said, you had a double shot of espresso for $5. That is a valid too, but that's what you're used to spending. So I'm curious. I mean, to the willing that you're open to discussing it, UFC, from what I understand, is also a franchise business, right?
Yep.
So looking at the tightening of the capital markets, you talked about private equity kind of being a challenge based of what they're looking for, and that's more on the corporate side. But I think the tightening of the capital markets also impacts your master franchisees, because how are they able to get, in the past, let's just say you look at your EBITDA, you take, we had Pete Moore on early explained, they'll get a loan to multiple against the EBITDA, build and expand against that. Mm-hmm. So from your perspective for corporate and also your franchisees, the fact that capital markets have tightened, where does the growth come from, right? If you're seeing a downward pressure on memberships,
Well, listen, we were strategic in that manner. So we went out and worked with Core Health and Fitness on a relationship that and they have 7 or 8 preferred vendors that allows us to work with them directly to gain gym-centric financing.
Yep.
And it's generally over 5, 6, or 7 years, and it works well. But the key as a franchisor is I just got to watch the debt load. Because if you go open a $5 million gym and you finance $4 million of that and your monthly net is $60,000 a month, you're going to sink yourself in debt. Let's take a lesson from companies that went bankrupt. They didn't go bankrupt because their clubs are losing money. They went bankrupt because of the debt on the business, right? So I think what you have to weigh is the risk reward. And based on the opportunity, you got to make real-time decisions. Is it the right dead load per opportunity? And I have a general rule. Don't put any more than $30,000 of debt on any one location.
30,000?
30,000 per month of debt.
Per month.
Per month, yeah. So that would equate out to, roughly maybe $2 million of debt. And there can be exceptions to that. If it's an A location, that's a different discussion. But a lot of times in these A locations, you can also get TI reimbursement back from the landlord of $60 to $80 a square foot. So between that and the $2 million of debt, you're in generally in a pretty good spot.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalog has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalog is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
What do you think? One of the things that's come up in a couple of conversations is difficulty in getting a certain size locations. And I'm not sure whether there's any correlation, but the locations are getting bigger, but also a lot of these big retail brands seem to be going under as well. So do you think that people are going to be forced to move into those bigger locations because that's what's become available, and a lot of these developers want people that are going to generate the traffic? And could that be sort of overstretching some of these models to a size where some of them may find it difficult to get that sort of membership base?
I think as long as your financial guys understand the pivot of where you start losing money and you're very disciplined on not signing up for too much, I think you'll be okay. But I also think in that regard, landlords are going to reduce their rents as time goes on. I'm working on a deal right now in Hawaii where I really only want 30,000 square feet. The building's 45, and they're going to give me the 15 because they don't want to demise. They don't want to spend the money on demising it. And they're going to give me the 15 plus pay the TI without additional rent. And so opportunities like that can happen in today's world. Now, in regards to the customer funnel, think about it. If you go to a Rite Aid versus going to a Walmart, who has more cars coming in? If you go to a megaplex movie theater versus a one movie theater, who has more cars coming in? If you, Lifetime Fitness, I promise you they have more guest traffic than Orange Theory in their clubs, right? Mm-hmm. It's the massive presentation that creates curbside appeal, that creates guest traffic, excitement inside the market. So when you see some of these clubs in Texas, some of these low-cost clubs that are 70,000 square feet, they're getting 35 walk-ins a day. Whereas some of these smaller gyms, these 15, 16,000 square foot fitness-based gyms, they may be only getting 2 or 3 walk-ins a day. And so there is that tipping point of, you got to do a very good kind of evaluation to see where that is, because you do got to balance out your rent, your TI, your operating. I mean, to cool a building, especially in the country of California, right? To cool the gym that I own, which is 45,000 square feet. My utilities last month in that gym, $34,000.
Okay.
34th, now it's 135 million degrees in Corona, but that's too much money.
Yeah.
And so it's not just the rent, it's also the other operating costs that you have to consider as you go through this.
I also heard that some of the sort of players that have been in the market for a while that have understood how to negotiate, get great deals, have got really good deals, and then some of the new players are coming in and they're just outbidding them for sites as well. Maybe they don't have the experience, maybe they're being forced to grow, but that's another thing that seems to be creating a bit of tension in the market.
And listen, it's a free market. And so that's where I come back to the word discipline.
Yeah.
When I was in my 30s, I wanted to sign any lease that was in front of me. I didn't care, right? I just wanted to open a gym. And I would convince myself it was a good deal. Now that I'm in my high 40s, wink, wink, I turn away many more deals than I sign, like that I approve from the franchise side. I'm not in a hurry. I want our franchisees to be incredible. When they sign up now as a franchisee, I let them know, listen, we have a development plan and a development rider, and there's a timeline around it. But as long as you show good faith, I'll extend the timeline in perpetuity, because it's all about the right real estate. You either make your job 80% more difficult or 80% easier based on the location that you pick. I'd much rather be by a Costco than be in an industrial park where there's no walk-by traffic, right? So patience is key, having discipline to say no to sites. And if somebody comes in and outbids you and they just drive the rent up, God bless them. Let them have it, and you move on to the next site.
So I think from your perspective, you believe that location is key. You need scale in today's market because you need the eyeballs and people walking through the door. I think scale also allows you to make investments in technology, in product, in the layout, and all the learning. So do you think that it's hard for boutique fitness? You talk about Orange Theory, but do you think it's hard for boutique fitness, unless maybe they have scale, to win with today's consumer?
Not necessarily. I think there's a place for it. I think boutique fitness, and I have boutique model in my company, right?
Yeah.
I have Class UFC gym. The ones that I find most successful are the owner-operators. The coach, like a Matt, this guy's an amazing, if you didn't know this, he's an amazing coach, right? He comes in and he coaches me to buy stuff from him all the time.
I knew about that.
Yeah, but if I had him, and he was just focused on running our class model, and that's all he was doing, or just focused on running an Orange Theory, that club would be great. If Matt stepped away from it and he said, listen, I know I'm an amazing coach, I know that I can motivate and inspire consumers like nobody else, but I'm gonna now hire 2 people to do it instead of me. What happens is the quality, even though it's maybe a little like minute, the quality just reduces a little bit. And that 3 or 4 or 5 basis points of reduction of quality will resonate into a massive reduction in membership acquisition. So my opinion is on the boutiques, you have to be owner-operators. And that's just my opinion. I think if you're an owner-operator, it's an incredible opportunity to get into. If you're not an owner-operator and you're looking for just investment, I think bigger gyms are a better opportunity.
Can as an owner-operator, is that financially, I know everyone's got different levels of what makes sense, but in general terms, can they work? Because I guess at some point you're not going to want to chain to the gym all the time, and maybe you want to have another one. Like, how do those owner-operators kind of make it into something that makes sense for them?
Well, I mean, listen, when you look at the boutique space, there's a lot of data of closures and where people had too much of an appetite and made emotional decisions to grow because they had very quick results very fast. It's not what you do in your first year when you have reduced rent and you have deferred financing and you have all those things and you have new customer energy. It's what you do in year 3 and 4 that matters. That's where the rubber hits the road. And if you're not growing your member base through 36 months or 42 months, something went wrong. And I think that's the challenge, is that when you're a new operator, if Matt goes in and acquires Matt Studio and you're doing amazing in the first year, and half that year was deferred rent or abated rent, and then reduced rent in the second 6 months, and you had deferred financing, and you're thinking, man, things are great, I'm growing. You're going to sign lease number 2 within that first year. As you open club number 2 and you get spread, club number 1 will have slightly reduced results. Now, you could pick a great person that's as good or better than you, and if you can do it, high five. That's amazing, because it's hard to do that. If you're great at recruiting and staffing, where somebody can come in and provide equal or better talent than you to your consumer, I think it's a great bet. If you can't do that, then I think you're setting yourself up for some risk. And so it's risk reward, right? If you're an amazing recruiter, okay, let's see what you got. But if you want to, in my opinion, you got to base your business strategy on an average profile. If an average profile can make you money, you know you're in a good business. If an average profile candidate loses you money, you shouldn't touch it.
Okay. Well, it's been great to chat with you finally and have you on L.I.F.T.S.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it, Adam.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you very much, Adam.
So we've got Jack Daly. You are the CEO and the owner of TRX. You just picked up TRX, which I want to get into here in a minute.
Just picked it up.
About 2 years ago. Well, it's been a couple of years, I think, almost a couple of years, I think. Welcome to your first episode of L.I.F.T. Hopefully we'll get you back on again. There's so much to talk about. You and I have had a chance to know each other. We've worked out together. We've plunged together. Well, I dipped, you plunged.
You haven't rolled with me yet.
I haven't rolled with you yet. We've done the ladder workout. You've done some incredible things at TRX. You've done an acquisition. So lots to unpack and talk about. And yeah, we're excited to have you on.
Well, thanks, Mel. I'm really excited to be here. I've always considered you a friend in the industry. You've been a river guide for me for a long time. So anytime I can hang out with you, I'm excited to do it.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'm hoping we cut the bit before we started because we had a really interesting conversation about cold plunge. So maybe we'll release that as a special episode at some point.
Happy to. Maybe we should do it in a cold plunge.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Be something. That would be something. Well, he's definitely peer pressured me into upping my cold plunge game. And well, why don't we do this? We'll do a quick story, right? So Jack and I summer out in Long Island. And he was like, hey, Mo, do you want to come over? So I said, well, sure. Do you want to work out? I asked Jack if he wants to work out. He's like, knowing that he likes to work out. I was like, Jack was like, sure, I'm up for a workout. But I didn't know what we were going to do. So I'm like, maybe we do a bit of my stuff and a bit of your stuff. But you didn't want to do my stuff. So next time.
I was willing to. We didn't get through all of my stuff.
We didn't get through all of it yet. So we go there. He said, Mo, do you cold plunge? I've cold plunged before. But to me, a cold plunge is anything that's below 50 degrees. That's what I kind of view as a cold plunge. So I get to his house, we go in the back, and he takes off his cover. He looks at the temperature. I don't look at the temperature. He looks at the temperature, and then he goes on and changes. Then I go grab the temperature and look at it. I'm like, this thing's 34 degrees. Was it 34? Is that right? 34 degrees. Like, okay, this is going to be fun, but you know what? I can do it. So Jack goes in first, and you're in for, I think, 5 minutes or 6 minutes.
Are you 6? Yep.
6. I'm like, okay, how hard can this be? I jump in, I think, and I didn't know you were timing me. 22 seconds. 22 seconds.
You said I didn't say it.
That's good.
Hey, that's a start. We all start somewhere.
That is the lowest start. Knowing me, that is not.
No. The hardest part of cold plunging is what you did, which was got in. Everything else beyond that is you just stretch it out and you'll get used to everything else.
It's that initial, we're talking about this initial kind of shock that your body feels. And so much in life, in business, in cold plunging, it's mental. Yeah. It's not the body, because your body's capable, your body could do something. But then Jack kind of coached me through. So I lasted a minute yesterday at Othership, which was, I was impressed by, but looking at a lot of the stuff that you've kind of coached me through.
But it is mental. That's an important point. But the cold plunging, there's cellular benefit. We all know that. There's the brown fats that happen too, and that's all good. But it's mental is what I do it for. That's where I think a lot of people get excited about it, because I'm blessed. I'm naturally a happy guy. I'm usually in a good mood. When I cold plunge, I'm in a materially better mood throughout the day. The endorphin burst that comes from it lasts for the day. So doing it in the morning, it's a mental game. And I know there's cellular benefits and I know there's health benefits, but it's that mood side of it. That's why I do it so often. And it's really just because of that. Now, I also get the added benefit of the stuff that I can't see, I can't feel, but I'm getting longevity out of it and other benefits. But it's that mental side that makes it worthworthwile to me.
Well, and
doing it with a friend is just a pleasure too.
Well, and I get that from running. So then after that, just to wrap this up, we then did some mobility with the TRX. We did the Y-bell movements, which I want to get into here in a minute. Then we did the ladder, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I feel better about the ladder because yesterday I asked Kenny Santucci about how far he got. I said, what number do you get? So you made him do the ladder too. And he got to 16 or 12, is that right?
Well, whatever he told you.
I think he might have seen it. Did we do 12?
We did 10.
We did 12.
Yeah.
Okay, I told him 12.
That-
I thought we did 12.
Yeah.
But that was another, we got to do that workout.
Is that insane workout you told me about?
That's it.
The ladder's a part of it. The ladder is a pull-up, push-up ladder. And you do 1 pull-up, 2 push-ups. Then 2 pull-ups, 4 push-ups. 3, 6, 4, 8, 5, 10. And you go up to 10, 20, or you go up to 12, 24, or you go up to 16, 32, or you go up to 20, 40, and then you turn and go back down. So if you go up to 10 and back down, you're doing 100 pull-ups and 200 push-ups. And you do that for time. If you go to 16 and back down, you do 256 pull-ups, 512 push-ups. If you go to 20 and then back down, you're doing 400 pull-ups and 800 push-ups. And it's a great routine to be able to, because you can always do 1, 2. You can typically do 2, 4. And then you go to where you can't go anymore, and then you turn and go back down. Well, you've already done it. And then you just over time, if you keep up on that, it's a very simple workout.
You clearly enjoy pain in your life.
No, that helps
Is that why you
avoid
purchased
pain.
TRX? Is that-
Well, you were on, there's an interesting story there, right? So you were on, you still, I think, are on the Navy SEAL Foundation. Is that correct?
The Navy SEAL Foundation board, right? And that's how I've gotten involved with TRX. Randy Hetrick, the founder of TRX, most people know, was a SEAL Team 6 squadron commander when he developed a suspension trainer. Went to Stanford Business School 20 plus years ago, came out and started the company because he needed to work out and his men needed to work out while they were deployed and couldn't bring equipment with them. So they found this remarkable way to do it. And the SEALs have been doing that for 25 years. So I knew Randy through the SEAL community. I didn't serve as a SEAL, but my oldest friend from childhood served for 30 years. They call him Bam Bam. Think about a Navy SEAL they call Bam Bam, right? And so he is that guy, but he's also, my mom used to say he's the nicest kid from our neighborhood. So that describes many SEALs, that kind of contrast. So I got to know Randy, and Randy said, hey, some guys, took over my company. They're doing a financing, can you take a look? And this was a couple years ago. And the company had gotten itself into financial trouble. They were doing a financing. And I did take a look because I spent 25 years on Wall Street buying large, multi-billion-dollar companies, and just retired and decided to focus on my lifestyle, which includes working out and other things. So I've been on this journey of investing, my wife and I investing our own money into lifestyle-related businesses. And so when your friend reaches out and asks for help, I took a look, and I said, well, the bad news is I think they're doing very poorly. I said, the good news is, why don't we buy it, right? So we acquired the company. I brought Randy had exited the business. I brought him back in as the chairman of the company. And so that's what brought me to TRX.
And since then, it's been quite the journey, I think. So has that been 2 years yet? Or?
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And
2 years and a week or two.
There you go. So I was close on that. You have, in a lot of ways, I'm on the outside, even though we're friends, I'm on the outside looking in, but I would say in a lot of ways, you've transformed the company. You have rebuilt your relationship with the vendors. You've rebuilt the relationship with the training community, which is so important, which is let go.
Very important.
You have made an acquisition in Y-Bell. You brought in best-in-class industry experts on digital, on marketing, on consumer goods. Tell me more about what your plan is. I mean, it's been a whirlwind 24 months.
Yep.
What's the goal here? What's your plan for TRX?
So the goal is to keep doing what we're doing. So, but let me put it in perspective. So when we came in, we did have to, in our view, is retool the business, completely transform the supply chain. All of our warehouses are now in world-class hands, and our KPIs on the supply chain are world-class, right? That's a transformation where you're taking inventory from all over the world and putting it in a different place and managing it better, right? The supply chain, reinvigorating supplier agreements, the engineering redevelopment and redesign. So we, world-class engineering team, rebooted our marketing engine, which we are blessed. I came into a business that's well known around the world. We have 2.5 million social media followers. We've added a tremendous number since the 2 years I've been involved. and the team's been involved. And so we've just really reinvigorated this ecosystem of TRX people from around the world in a pretty exciting way. So each part of that is foundational to what the business was doing. So we've had our head down, really retooling the business and getting our act together, is probably, for lack of a better word. And by the way, we had a world-class management team and a world-class board of directors. I do control the company, but this is a serious board of directors. And I told them, don't let me buy a company for 2 years, because we had so much work to do. And then I met, as Lawrence with the Y-Bell 6 months into it. And so I got the board together and say, okay, your job is to tell us why we shouldn't do this. And of course, we acquired Y-Bell. It's a perfect fit for the company. So while we've been transforming the business and really focusing on our core activities, we also added a company. So now we're 2 years into that. It's a very healthy business now. And now we're starting to look forward to, where do we grow? Which directions do we grow? And so our goal is to just keep doing that, right? People say, well, you have an exit strategy. No, we're building the company. We're building the company for the long term, and we want to just keep improving the business. So there are growth strategies we have, of course, but right now, until now, we've really just been focused on the core.
What do you come from outside of the industry? I would say you've obviously know a lot about business and buying and selling very large companies. When your experience of coming into, I'll call it the fitness industry and TRX, like what got you excited about the business at the time, and what excites you about the space that we're all in at the moment, looking forward?
What got me excited about the business is the brand is unique. This is a world-known brand. It's world-renowned. We punch way above our weight from a size standpoint, just in terms of 350,000 certified trainers worldwide. Everywhere I go around the world, you get a little endorphin burst when you say you're associated with TRX. Everybody has a good experience with it, and they like to talk about it. So we have this amazing brand that was built over 20 years, and it's backed up by an amazing ecosystem of trainers that's the backbone of the brand, and people who are focused on sophisticated training. So we thought, terrific brand, amazing ecosystem of knowledgeable, passionate people who support the brand. Also, functional training. If you think about it, 20 years ago, Navy SEALs were doing it because they're not bodybuilders. They have a mission to do. The whole world has kind of caught up to that, right, and now realize that strength training, look, if you want to be a bodybuilder, great, that's your passion, fine. If you don't want to be a bodybuilder, people thought you didn't have to pay attention to strength. We all know you have to pay attention to strength. We were talking about cold plunging as a longevity tool. Strength training is a longevity tool. So, but if you don't want to be a bodybuilder, you want functional strength, right? So we think we're right on trend with where the market is continuing to go. So that part was also terrific. So we have this great product. Our intellectual property is very robust, very strong, great tools. We're going to stick to our knitting. We're going to stay in functional training. We're going to continue to do that. We have opportunities in digital. We have opportunities in connected fitness. We have opportunities in services, because we're an education business that sells a product. Randy continues to remind me, we're an education business that sells a product. So our ability to train trainers and train the people around the world who are training others, we've been that business for 20 years. So those are all the great parts of TRX that got us excited coming in. I'll give you an example. One of our board members is Mark Fields. Mark Fields ran Ford Motor Company. Fortune 10 size company, CEO, $150 billion company. I'm not flexing, I'm just putting in perspective. But he came out of the marketing department of Ford. So while I was buying industrial and services companies, Mark is a world-renowned marketing exec who then became a global CEO. And so the value of the brand and what we can do with the brand, we think we have something pretty special here. Now, your other question was about the industry. I have to tell you guys, you're in the industry, you don't take it for granted. This is an amazing industry. It's positive energy, right? The people are a positive energy group of people, and you get that. We're here at Beyond Activ, right? You meet people. There's a genuine goodness and interaction with people, because I think people who are focused on health and wellness want to share that knowledge, because it's a part of being a healthy person, is communicating societal impact. So I don't take that for granted, because I spent 25 years on Wall Street. I taught engineering before that at a university. I've been in industrial and services businesses. I'm proud of those businesses, but nobody felt as good as people in this industry. So that part, I think, is particularly special. I also think where we are as an industry in health and wellness, That is on trend with where the consumers thinking about right now. The depth of expertise that people are getting with the podcast culture, like what you guys are doing, you're able to bring information to people in a form that you never were able to do it before. People are getting smarter. They're focused on health and wellness, and therefore the service providers who collaborate and bring great products and services to the market, it's a very healthy place to be, and frankly, an uncertain world and an uncertain economy. So I think it's the people of the industry, the positioning of the industry, make it pretty attractive.
At the same time, how do you think that we can get other people into the fold? I mean, we just talked about cold plunging, Navy SEALs, suspension training, and this industry that we're all in, even here at Beyond Activ. And what we always try to solve for is that's still only a certain segment of the market, less than 25% of the market that's addressable. And what I keep on thinking about, and we're always trying to ideate around, is how do we get the other 75% of the market into the fold so they can enjoy the happiness, the community, and all the benefits that come with it. Have you spent some time on that?
Yeah, so here's the way I think about it. I think, let me say it this way. Effective parenting, I believe, I have 3 sons, 22, 20, 19. Effective parenting isn't telling your kids what to do. Effective parenting is leading a good life and letting them watch. So as an industry, if we lead a good life, and when we provide opportunities for people to see that you're leading a good life and you let them watch, they're going to learn, they're going to want to do it, right? Or we could sit here and tell them this is what you have to do, and you know what? They're going to ignore that the same way they ignore their doctor's orders or their spouse or their kids telling them to get healthy. We have to continue to promote each other and what everybody's doing, and just by virtue of example, lead a good life, let them watch. So what do? We have events, we have industry consortiums that get together. Kenny Santucci is
October
doing
5th.
his October 5th event, NYC Strong, right? Or Strong New York. It's an experience of a day of people gathering. Have thousands of people get together once again to just experience it. And I'm a Wall Street guy, right? So I was asked to give a talk at a Forbes conference to a bunch of Wall Street guys. And and I said, well, I'm out of the industry. They said, no, we want you to talk about healthy living, right? And I said, oh, great, I've arrived now in fitness. Started off with just trying to explain to people, Wall Street people, with, 1,000 in the crowd. I said, you're going to run out of your health before you run out of your money. Mm-hmm. Let's just think about that. You will run out of your health before you run out of your money. 99.999% of the people out there. How much time do you think about your wealth? How much time do you think about your money? And how much time do you focus on trying to optimize it? But you're going to have that when all is said and done. This one, how much time are you spending here? That doesn't mean ignore your wealth and ignore your money. It does mean focus on what's most important. What is your, valuable asset? It's your health. So look, I'm 58 years old, right? I absolutely think about the world as I have another 50 years of leading a really healthy life and lifestyle. Because I can show you friends I work out with. I work out with a guy who's 98 years old.
Wow.
Right? If we all think about it that way, and we all then try to optimize and you don't have to wait until you're 58 to start doing it, right? Do it when you're younger. But there's never a bad time. You just start that journey. To me, that's how we promote it to other people.
You talked about Wall Street, and it's one of the questions that we've been asking people on the podcast today is knowing that coming from that side of the world and looking at what's happening in the fitness industry. Clearly, there's been a lot of ups and downs from the bricks and mortar side, digital, and a lot of these connected products have sort of been through an interesting period as well. How do you think or know what sort of external people that are thinking about the industry? How are they feeling now about the space based on sort of what's happened and some of the challenges coming out of the pandemic?
I think I have 2 messages for the industry and for investors. I think it's understandable that it's risk off right now. And it is. It's a pretty tough time. We all know companies are out trying to raise capital. It's a very tough time to raise capital. Think about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years. Very easy time to raise capital, right? The capital markets I've been in for decades, they're cyclic. They always are. They always will be. That's never going to change. And we're happen to be in a down cycle, right? So when you're in a down cycle, there are things that you should do as an operator. Hunker down, pull back. You can't really lean in and invest aggressively because the access to capital may not be there when you need it. So it's natural that the industry pulls back. Same thing with investors, they do that. However, where true value is created is when you lean in at a time like this, as an investor or as an operator, right? I've been through so many cycles as an investor, you know, and it's easy to say, hard to do. Oh, invest when there are tough times. Okay, now's a tough time. Think about sharing your precious liquidity with somebody else. You're like, well, I don't want to do that. I'd much rather invest at a time like this than when valuations are sky high and everything's going to the moon and everybody's piling in. But by the way, it's a lot easier to do it then. You don't feel as much like an idiot then, right? You might feel that way after the fact when it crests and come down. So it's understandable given COVID, right? Given the economy, given the shifts in our industry, that, you know, investing capital, which is a half step removed from the people who are on the ground making businesses work, that they're cautious and they're saying, wait a second, I'm not sure yet, I have to see more clarity. That's understandable. The smart ones will still lean in. They'll pick their spots and they know now's the best time to do it, right? Because now's the time you want to get in. Like, you know, making acquisitions, you're not going to find a company like ours very active, top of the market, trying to get to the top of the top of the top of the market. We're just not going to do that, right? So we are much more apt to do something during difficult times than we are during great times. And I think as an investor, that's a healthy way to be. But so the message to the industry is, don't worry, I know it's bleak and it's not going to be bleak forever. What happens when you're in a down part of the cycle like now, everybody thinks, oh, it's 18 months away before we start seeing the upturn, 18 to 24 months away. I've been hearing 18 to 24 months away in every industry I've been involved in for decades. When times are good, it feels like it's going to last for 18 to 24 months. When times are bad, it feels like it's going to last for 18 to 24 months until it's Monday and the market changes. Because it happens like that, and there's no early warning. It just happens. So this won't last forever. You know, be smart with your business, be cautious, but don't close the doors, right? Still think about making those kind of investments.
Well, Jack, thank you very much for your time today. Very interesting conversation.
Well, thanks, Matthew. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Bo.
Good to be on, Jack.
So, Jay Worthy, you've been CEO of Myzone for about 6 months.
That's right.
You made the trip over the pond to come to Beyond Activ from the UK. Welcome to this episode of L.I.F.T.S podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Really excited.
Any key insights or learnings you've had being 6 months in?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing, I've been a Myzone user for 4.5 years. So
What's your status, by the way?
I'm a Hall of Famer,
Oh, okay.
Matthew.
All right.
a proud Hall of Famer. But there's something in that, isn't there? I mean, that's something as a Myzone, a Myzoner, as we call them, a Myzone consumer for 4.5 years that I recognized before I joined the business was there was some secret sauce in the business around once you get people into that process of getting them to hit their MEPs every month, we keep them, like they don't drop out of the ecosystem. And so I had that knowledge coming in and then spending time with customers. I've been at events. I was at the Beyond Activ event in Singapore within my first couple of weeks, and I was at FIBO and IFA and other things. And you're spending time with customers and you realize there's a huge amount of goodwill out there for Myzone. A lot of people rooting for the brand and the product, which is, you know, really exciting because it gives us plenty of platform for growth. And I'm really heartened by great team, lots of passion in the business, and then actually lots of low-hanging fruit. There's lots of opportunity with Myzone.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always believed that you've built an incredible sense of community. To your point, like, are you in the Hall of Fame? You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But you also came into Myzone at a time of transformation, at a time where you're seeing, you know, wearables grow. Wearables went from a nice to have to now a must have.
Yeah.
People are bringing their own wearables into the gym ecosystem. But when you started, you were kind of one of the pioneers in-club activity tracking before anyone else really got in.
Right.
How do you see that business evolving, and how do you think that's going to impact your roadmap for the future?
Yeah, it's fascinating actually, because I just came from a panel discussion where we talked about this exact thing. You know, when Myzone launched 13 years ago, Apple Watch was just a digital watch. Whoop didn't exist, or a Ring didn't exist. Garmin was really for pro sports and elite athletes only. They certainly weren't leaning into lifestyle or fitness. And so the world has changed from a consumer wearable perspective. For good and for bad. From a Myzone perspective, for bad, there's just a lot more competition, and that makes it That makes it difficult, but equally a rising tide raises all ships. I think that's really exciting for us. And so it's given us something to get after. But I think we're also, in a really interesting like normalization stage for wearables. We've been around the industry for a long time. You go back 10 or 15 years and wearables were still quite rare and somebody would have to explain what they were wearing. Whereas now today, they're completely ubiquitous. You're wearing an Aura ring, or you've got a Garmin, watch on, or I know you wear Whoop and you wear Myzone as well. And so, they're now much more ubiquitous. And so that has created this environment where it's completely normalized to have a wearable on. So I get really excited about the next phase beyond that, which is what do we do with all of this data? And I think that's where the wearable space is, from an industry perspective, is we've now completely normalized the technology. Everybody accepts that they should probably have something that helps them track their lifestyle markers, and they're much more focused on longevity. But a lot of people still don't know what to do with the data. So have we really progressed yet?
You've come in, I guess, sort of more or less beginning of 2024, more or less.
Yep.
And being a lot of experience on the operations side, a lot of experience on the manufacturers, the equipment side, now in the wearables. How do you see where the industry is today? And also, I'm aware you just come back from Hong Kong, so I guess you've got a perspective of US, Asia, and being in the UK. What's your impressions as in the industry as a whole, and what do you see some of the interesting opportunities, not just necessarily for Myzone, but just for anyone who's playing in that space at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I mean, first of all, 6 months has blown by, so I've just absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the last 6 months at Myzone. But if you kind of go back to before I joined, what's the bet that I ultimately placed by joining this business? The bet that I'm placing is, I think wearables is a huge part of the growth that we're about to see in this industry. I think that the technology has now progressed to a level that the miniaturization of technology as well means that we're now at the point where people can be wearing a ring, or they can be wearing a wristband, and it's really not interfering with their daily life at all. That's really exciting because it means that we get kind of 24/7 data. So I'm placing a bet really by joining this organization that I think a big part of our industry growth is focused on longevity, and that is going to be anchored around wearable technology. Obviously Myzone has a really important role to play in that, but there's some other really impressive wearables out there doing great work. And I think that it's going to help us solve one of the biggest industry problems that we have. Well, we have two actually that I think are still there. And I dread to think how many years I've been in this industry, but certainly kind of man and boy, and since before I had a white beard. But we've been grappling with the same things for a long, long time. One is, we know from Dr. Paul Bedford and others that if we get people in, 4 to 6 times during the first 6 weeks, they're much more likely to stay, for longer. And that's meaningful to club operators. It's straight to the bottom line. It's meaningful for consumers because they hopefully create a healthy lifestyle. But we haven't necessarily done a really good job of helping them have those experiences of not just getting into the club. It's not just presenteeism, but what are they actually doing? And are they doing the right things that drive long-term behavior change? And then the other problem that we have is that once we get people into the ecosystem, we don't do a very good job of kind of staying in touch with them and having, interactions with them. And, from my perspective, selfishly, Myzone do a really good job of both of those things. We just haven't necessarily done a great job of explaining that to the industry. So that's a big area of focus. I think that wearables have a really important role to play in helping consumers understand the so what. And so to kind of pivot to the last part of the question, I think what's next? I think probably Gen AI has a really important role to play. Will we continue to see really significant accelerations in technology? For sure, yes. We'll see more miniaturization of technology. We'll see more sensors going into wearables, and that will drive incredible insights that we never thought we had. But we've already got quite a lot. We've gone from virtually no insights to thousands of data points, and we still don't know what to do with them. And so I think Gen AI is one of the areas where our industry can really start to progress. And it's not about AI replacing coaches. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about AI taking data and being able to translate that into hyper-personalized content that coaches can then support users with. And I think that, brands like Myzone have a really important role to play in the industry in brokering that conversation. Case in point, right? So there are some wearables out there have played around with AI already, and At the moment, I feel like the execution is quite poor because ultimately it feels much more like a query, or a SQL query, or a database search than genuine, kind of insights that will drive behavior change and drive actions. And so that's something that we're really focused on. How do we take all of this rich data that we're collecting with wearables and actually drive the so what, to help you think about what you should do next?
So when you look at wearables and the different biomarkers you can collect, you're right, there's been a big evolution. One, in form factor. You've gone from chest strap to now being something on your wrist to something being on your ring. It's getting smaller, it's getting more accurate. But for gyms and fitness centers in particular, I think what Myzone has really dialed in is, to your point, is that so what? It's what can I take out of this wearable and really use it as a retention and an engagement tool. But wearables today are able to give you a lot more markers than what they did even 5 years ago. So here's my question to you is, when you look at wearables, you look, like I have an Oura ring on, right? So this can tell me, and actually Matthew has an Oura ring on too, but this can tell you my body temperature, my movement and activity, my pulse, obviously, and they're going to launch all of the new things. But if you're a gym, that's a lot of data, and the so what is becoming more and more difficult. So in some ways, you've seen the growth of wearables. On the other, way, you've seen consumers get inundated with so much information. Consumers don't know what to do with it. So from a Myzone perspective, what, aside from heart rate and PPG, what are the markers you think could be helpful for a gym to then take that and provide some insights for?
If I may, I'll answer the question on behalf of consumers and operators, because obviously we have two customers simultaneously. We are a B2B to C company. And so, we're intently focused on the consumer, the Myzoner, because we recognize that their experience ultimately leads to, the operator experience. And so I think that, first of all, sensors will always be able to collect way more data than we can probably ever do anything with. And so, the art of the possible for us at Myzone is saying, okay, well, what data do consumers want to get access to so that they can see on a regular basis and they can see positive trends? What are the things that matter to them? And so we're doing quite a lot of voice of customer research where we're asking them that question. And so it shouldn't be for me to answer that question. It should be for our users to actually tell us, okay, these are the things that I like to see and I like to track over time. And I think there'll then be a bunch of below the line statistics and data points that they may not necessarily need to see or want to see. They can get access to should they want to, but they might still drive programming and personalization in the background. And so I think that one of the dangers with wearables has been, well, they collect so much data and then they present them back and it can be quite confusing. And I think you've mentioned Oura Ring. I think they do a really nice job of simplifying the delivery of the insights, so you kind of know what you need to do. And there are others that maybe haven't done such a good job. It's a bit overbearing. I think one of the beauties about Myzone that we can bring to any kind of data points that we bring into our ecosystem over time is we're quite good at simplifying fitness. Ultimately, Myzone has always been about saying, well, look, the World Health Organizations for physical activity are this. That equates to 1,300 MEPs a month, in simple terms. Do 1,300 MEPs a month and you'll level up. Don't do 1,300 MEPs a month and you won't. And I think that kind of simplification, that lowest common denominator, has helped us, scale. And so we'll bring that same spirit to everything that we look at. So every data point that we look at, it's about trying to make it simplified for the consumer, to make it easy. From an operator perspective, I think that there's consumer metrics that matter to the consumer that don't matter so much. So you mentioned, respiration rate, you mentioned skin temperature, and some of those things are not that important. Sleep is quite interesting. If I'm an operator, I'd be quite curious to know, are my members sleeping well or are they not? I'd also quite be interested to, say, correlate that to when they come and work out. And I might be able to start to predict when, for example, a shift worker is likely to leave as a member, because I start to see that their workout times decrease, or maybe their workout times get closer to their shift. And so we know that we could maybe use data that way. So I think that operator data becomes much more a function of, how do I make sure that I understand my member, and how do I understand how likely they are to stay a customer of mine? Because that's what I care about. I mean, I want them to be successful, but if I'm an operator, I want my P&L to be healthy, right, ultimately. And so I think we at Myzone are really intently focused, since I joined, on saying, okay, how do we filter data to provide the right lens for the right user?
Having a forward look on the space, and I'm talking very broadly, you've got a lot of new companies of which, many of them are presenting here. I've just been with the guys at Bout, and these guys are sort of building these new businesses from the ground up. They're looking at studio technology, access, engagement, payment. They're looking at the product itself. They've got AI built into it. So there's these new businesses that are coming along and being able to do things on a platform that previous companies are going to find it very, very difficult to do. But obviously, a lot of companies that have been around, you've been at L.I.F.T.S for many years. You've been at places like L.I.F.T.S, for example. So how do you see, I get how new companies can have an advantage and create these new models, but how do you think some of the existing companies that, whether it's an operator, a boutique studio, an equipment manufacturer, can figure out how to be relevant in this new space? Is it partnering up with people like yourselves? Is it figuring out how to do it themselves? Like where do these companies go? Because it's an interesting shift and one that I've not totally been able to figure out myself.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm not sure that I have all the answers, but I think two things that I would kind of line up on. One would be, I think collaboration is key. I think I just mentioned in the panel discussion, I think the industries go through this maturation cycle. And so I think for our industry over the last few years, we're kind of adolescent, maybe we're kind of young adult now. And as you grow up, you start to realize it's not all about you, it's about other people. And I think industries are the same. I think at the start, businesses and industries are very much about themselves and they're very insular. And then you start to realize that collaboration unlocks growth. So I think one thing is established brands have the opportunity to kind of look across and try and establish those partnerships. The second thing, I think that's really important is voice of customer, is that if you're established, you have a customer base. And so, listening to your customers and really learning from them and understanding what they want is something that the startups don't have. Those green startups coming in, they don't have a customer base. So we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Myzoners using our products every single day, with millions of devices. So, there's a really strong opportunity for us to actually ask them the question, what do you want? What matters to you? And so that's, I think, one of the strongest things that incumbents can do is make sure they listen to their customers.
And are you shifting, you think, from hearing you talk, so much is around data, which I think is rightfully so, and that's kind of where the industry is trending towards. But do you think you're shifting the model from a hardware-focused business to a services-focused business?
For Myzone specifically?
Yes.
I think we'll always be a hardware business. And I think that, we should be focused on what we're good at. I think we're really good at building wearable technology, and I think there's a ton of runway ahead of us to continue to get even better at that. So that will always be at the kind of the epicenter of what we do. But I think that there are services around our core product proposition that we should be bringing to the table as well. And there's expertise that we can bring in taking data and being able to feed it into our customers to help them be more successful. And so that's probably one of the biggest changes, Mo, that we're doing, is that we're, in the past we had this kind of almost like a bit of a walled garden. I think at Myzone, we wanted everybody to come and play in the Myzone sandpit. And going forward, I think for me, it's really important. Okay, what are the one or two killer North Star metrics that Myzone can deliver into our customers' ecosystem to help them be more successful? And that's, what do we bring to the table? That's really how we're thinking.
Well, Jason, I think you've got a flight to London to catch.
I have,
Thank you very much for your time today.
All right, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jason. Yeah. All right, well, I'm excited to have Mark Mullett and Ashley Mills. Did I mess it up?
He said that he hates that more than mullet.
He said Mullett.
This is what you did.
No, but you know what? That was top of mind. That's what your brain went to.
Exactly
it's all good.
Heard.
Rebrand me, Mo. Rebrand me.
Mullett, which I got right the first time. And then,
Sorry.
Okay, I'm introducing Mark Mullett and Ashley Mills. They are not a married couple.
Even though they have that marital tension between
Although we play one on TV.
You do play one on TV, but they are the co-founders of Obey Fitness.
Right.
And we're excited to have you on. Your first time on L.I.F.T.S, right?
Yeah.
Have you
The
been
first
on
time.
before?
No.
No, okay.
I'm a listener, but never had the opportunity. So excited to be here. Thank you guys for having us.
No, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much. So where do we start? Well, I think where we should start is a fantastic, yesterday evening you had a beautiful event. And we'd like to thank you for inviting us over there. And we had some really interesting conversations. And one of the things that sort of came up as I was sort of, eating some lovely food that you was handing out was this women's health. That was a a big subject from many different areas. So I thought I'd sort of ask you a little bit about how that relates into your business. What you're seeing, and why a lot of people feel that this subject is kind of many years behind probably where it should be.
Sure, that's a big question and a good question, and hopefully there's lots of men watching, and so if they don't know this stuff already, we can educate them. So when it comes to exercise science, most of the research is done on men. Men's bodies are easier to understand. They don't have a cycle that's like every day over a 28-day period. Their bodies are different, and there was a really incredible book called Invisible Women. About basically like how women are underserved and because they're not focused on. And it's everything from, when you look at drugs getting approved by the FDA, or the way that cars are built, like they're not built for a pregnant belly or breasts. Like all of this stuff is very real. So I think that women have started to understand more about this, and especially like the Gen Z audience. And it's great because it's starting to like really infiltrate culture, and we're seeing it on the fitness side, and it's something that I'm super passionate about, and we've developed Obey, and continue to think about how our product is going to evolve to really embrace women and help them to build body literacy. And so
body literacy.
Body literacy.
Is that a new word?
I read it in something unrelated to what we do, but I just felt
it's
like
ours.
It's sure it's
TM, little r, it's ours. So
I think it's a brilliant way of thinking about it, because we as women, like, our bodies are not the same, right? It's not that like every single woman's body is the same, but there are parts of our physiology that obviously across women are the same, and we have to really understand how our bodies shift and change. And again, that's going to be different for every woman. So an example of how we built a feature around it. We built a cycle tracking feature. There's lots of ways that you can track a period, but the goal was not about fertility, which is how most people track, but instead to use this as an opportunity to teach people about their hormone health, about how it affects their performance. So on your ovulation day, that's like your PR day, and towards the end of the month, you might find that you're like, it's harder to lift the weights that used to be really easy in different parts of the cycle. So there's also, there's this like, women have this idea that like you need to work out 5 days a week for an hour every time, and like we know that that's not the case. And so by creating these experiences for women, we can teach them. So we can say like, give them permission to listen to their bodies and understand really what's going on. So that's been a really important piece. We've also developed lots of content and collections around PCOS, around fertility, around prenatal and postnatal. When you have a baby, as you all probably know from seeing people in your lives that have had babies, it is the most physical experience, like it's the most intense physical experience of your entire life. And for the most part, the recommendations are, that you should, do this like gentle yoga, whatever, but it's not like a real workout. If you're someone who's used to working out, like you should continue to work out during that period, because you want to make sure that like you're going to recover well. When that baby wakes up at 3 a.m, you're going to want to pick up that baby, and you're not going to want to have back pain. Like there's a lot of, there's so much value in exercise. And so, what we're really doing is helping women to understand that you can have exercise and movement in all of these different parts of your life. And you should really listen to your body and let sort of your body and that body literacy, like let that start to infiltrate how you move about your life and about your day throughout all of the different seasons.
And so you founded Obey, you both co-founded Obey in 2018. I'm sure the rise of Peloton, digital fitness, influenced some of that. You both have agency-based backgrounds coming from CAA. I think a lot of people first think about Obey because you grew so much during the pandemic, which I want to get to in a minute. But what led to that like founding moment in 2018? And were you always focused on women's health?
Yeah, founding Obey was far less about other competitors and household names in the category now. And in fact, it didn't really play a role at all. The reason we founded Obey, simply put, was we both loved to work out with great instructors, great people, great experiences, and we really loved bringing great experiences to large groups of people. So you referenced the agency background. Ashley and I met at a agency called CAA, an incredible company in the entertainment space, and we worked in TV, traditional TV. Now, TV changed over time. We went from selling shows and building household names across Bravo and Food Network and HGTV, and that transitioned into businesses across, Amazon Prime and Netflix and Hulu, and the list goes on. We wanted to take that same skill set though and create great fitness experiences with great instructors and disseminate it across audiences who maybe didn't live in New York with, let's say, a Soul Cycle around the corner or a Barry's Boot Camp around the corner in the way that we had been working out. So that at the core was about bringing great fitness experiences to audiences across North America, across the world. The female piece is really important for two reasons. The first and foremost is what Ashley just described. She's underserved. She has not been spoken to in a way that is direct, personal, and physiologically accurate as it relates to strength training, fitness, etc. The other thing is we love that audience. We are that audience. We know that audience. You know, that audience is not only us, it's our families, it's our friends. And back in the TV business, that was the audience that we also catered to. If we were selling a show to Bravo, we were creating something for her. If we were selling a show to Food Network, we were creating something for her. So not only do we know her, we respect her, we love her, and we want to give her great moments throughout the day that she can look forward to either by herself, with her friends, with her family. In this case, the added benefit is it's great for her health, her mental wellness, her longevity, her overall well-being. And so that part makes it that much more special.
I was going to say, what sort of things do you think when you describe your sort of avatar, if I can call it that, what is she interested in now, as in relation to probably 3 or 4 years ago when we were just sort of coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So our audience is, like in terms of the demo, 25, 44, it's like 70% of our audience. And it's almost exclusively women. She's got a lot of stuff going on. So she's got kids, probably. She's working. She's maybe in a hybrid situation or a work from home situation. Regardless, her life has been kind of, is very, very different in her work life. And she's more bandwidth stretched than ever. And she wants to exercise. She wants to work out. But a lot of times she feels like I have nothing more to give. And so it's on us.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah. And me. And yeah, exactly right.
Did she just get a dog too?
Yeah. Don't get a dog.
Speaking of her friend. Yeah.
So it's really, really difficult to show up and to work out. And I think, for our audience, one thing that's been really interesting is that during the pandemic, it was all about like live classes and they wanted that community-driven experience. What we found is like the behavior totally changed in a post-COVID world. So we actually just did away with our live programming. We're still, creating just as much content, but we're doing it off of a live schedule, which, provides a lot of different flexibility for us. But yeah, people are really like into on-demand content. They're interested in short form. So our short forms tends to be some of our most popular content. So if it's like a 10-minute stretch or a meditation or a breath work or sculpt arms, where I think one of the great things about COVID is that because people were working out at home and they were really embracing fitness and wellness, they probably learned like how to fit it into their day in a different way. And so people understand now that like you could do 3 10-minute workouts throughout the day and it's the same as doing a full workout. And so you can just fit it in whenever it makes sense for you. And so I think that's one of the nice things. And we're definitely seeing that in our content consumption. We're also seeing that in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was like super into cardio, dance cardio, that sort of thing. Now we've gotten like so many converts into strength training, which like obviously we love cardio and obviously super important for heart health, but to see the adoption of strength training and lifting heavier weights, just like as a human, it makes me really excited because we know that that's the kind of movement that's going to like really improve your health span and also getting people to focus on body composition as opposed to weight that's also been a really like key one. It goes hand in hand with strength training.
So you talked about the pandemic and the influence that it had. It also influenced the funding and the investment area quite a bit as well. At one point, we were just talking about this, but tell the audience about what your valuation was, what you raised, and what the capital market is like today.
Yeah, at the height of the pandemic, there was a boatload of capital flowing into this category, and rightfully so. We completed a Series A with incredible partners during the pandemic that remain incredible partners and work with us day in and day out each and every week. Has funding changed? Yeah. I think it's changed across the wellness category. I think it's changed across the fitness category specifically. But I think it's changed across direct consumer in every way, shape, and form, right? And are we out there fundraising right now? No. Do we have plans on it? No. We've been strange is the wrong word, intensely capital efficient since day one. So since our seed round, we've been really capital efficient. So from a runway perspective, the financial health of our company from a need for new capital is in a really good spot. But I think that that'll change at some point. I think that, as companies, level out, as companies figure out where the puck is going for them, how they are bringing new technologies, how they are working with new consumer behaviors, how they are incorporating new audience sets in a more special way, or healthcare in a more special way, I think that funding will return. It's not that it's not there, but it's just not there in the same droves as the connected fitness heyday, if you will, of the pandemic. And it was a heyday. It was a pull forward in the category. These things happen. It just seemed a little unusual based on a worldwide pandemic. That doesn't happen every day, but it was what it was, and here we are now.
I also think there's a change to the economic environment in the sense that we're not seeing as many companies IPO, and there's way fewer unicorns. So I think as a result of that, probably a lot of, I'm obviously not in the venture world, but I would imagine everyone is pulling back. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time to see how all of this shakes out, especially with the businesses that were really big during COVID that raised these massive rounds. It's odd to me that there hasn't been more like mergers yet, but I would imagine we'll start to see that too.
Well, that's something, as I think is a good next question is, we have seen mergers happening in the industry. The need for women's health is still there. You've been around for 6 years, and we've barely made a dent in the need for like surfacing up the information and the content and the knowledge, the workout, the modalities, all of that. What do you think is next for Obey? Like, how do you think that you'll be able to scale and reach more people?
So part of, because Mark mentioned in the beginning that we're pretty capital efficient, we always have been, and we've really looked to strategic partners to help us with our growth. And so partnerships have always been a massive, massive part of our growth strategy. So some of the things, just to give you context, that we've done, like we've partnered with Disney Plus on when they launch Cruella, or when they launch West Side Story. Like Steven Spielberg had to like review this sizzle reel that we made. I was like, oh my God, is this real? Is this happening for us? But we do that in exchange for, they're getting us out into the world, and they're talking about us in front of a lot of folks. As well, we have great partnerships with American Express and for a time with Weight Watchers. So I think we're just going to continue leaning into those partnerships, as well as like really keeping our eyes open and understanding what's happening with the different players, because we are very, very women's focused, and I think there's like other women's focused companies that could be an interesting companies that we could potentially acquire, or if there's like a men's company that wants a female equivalent because they're looking to go to healthcare and healthcare needs both. I think there's some interesting synergies that we could potentially explore in the next couple of years, because it's going to...
What did Steven Spielberg think of your scissor reel, by the way?
He approved it.
He approved it.
I don't know what he said, but he approved it.
We got the sign off. So, two people from the entertainment business getting a Spielberg sign off. It's like, we're good.
Pretty cool. I was like, all right.
We can end it now.
Our work here is done.
The thing that's interesting, though, is back to the funding conversation. The broad category of femtech, and I say broad because it means so much from a product and services perspective. Funding is flowing into that world, necessarily so, in an incredible way. And I think that we do pair really nicely with a lot of the incredible services and new products that are out there for women's health, women's longevity, just general health awareness, right? So I'm interested to see where those partnerships take us over time. Because it's a very pivotal moment, I think, in that sector, but specifically for that demographic of humans who have been underserved to date.
And final question, what about apps? Because you hear a lot of them are not necessarily doing well financially, and I guess there was a period where there was just so many new apps coming out. Like, how would you describe that space as someone sort of who's living and breathing it every day? So
I think that in fitness specifically, it has been all about libraries and media and these giant libraries that people didn't know how to, necessarily figure out what they were gonna, what they wanted, or, there's a lot of frustration around the actual experience of picking a class or understanding what a brand is about. I think for us, one of the things that we did right away when, I guess 21, 22, is we built machine learning into our platform. And so we're using the data that we have to be able to personalize the experience. And we do it with an algorithm that says, here's your onboarding experience, here's the classes you take, but here are people that are like you, so that we can surface stuff so there's like real discovery there. And we do that with our programs, and, in a lot of different ways we're trying to, use as much as we can of our data to make sure this experience is really streamlined. The other thing I think that we've done that others haven't yet is, we're really, I have ADHD, but I think most people do at this point. It's like everyone is attentional or attentionally challenged. And so, what's really important for this kind of brain is that things are very simple and easy to use. And so, one thing that we've done is like our home experience is no longer just about content recommendations as it once was. Instead, it's like, here's today. Here are all the things that you need to do today. We get you in and out. We ask you only relevant data that we're actually going to use, which I think a lot of folks collect a lot of data and they don't do anything with it. But you give us information, and then we give you an output that reflects it. So here's an example. We built a feature called Movement Equations, which we're actually just about to launch. You guys can be the first to know.
Okay.
And essentially what it is one of the great things about fitness is it can change your sense of well-being, like in a given session, which there's really nothing. I can think of one other thing that can do that, but fitness is really like...
There's illegal or legal,
There you go.
But no, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's very few natural things which can do that.
Totally. And so what we've built is basically you track your mood in this very compelling, fun, consumer-centric experience, and then you take a class, whatever class that you want, and then you tell us how you felt after the fact. And then what we do with that information is we create a movement equation. I feel this, I do this, here's the outcome. And then the next time you feel that same way, so let's say I'm anxious, I do HIIT, and I feel calm. The next time you feel anxious, we're gonna say the last time you felt anxious, you did HIIT and you felt calm. And so we can serve that up to support their executive function and help them choose the right class. And then we're using our algorithm to be able to recommend the best content for that user based on that class type.
That's pretty cool.
I've not heard that. Have you heard that before?
I have not. No. Can't wait to try it out.
And now,
You've
learned something as well,
Yeah.
It's effective, it's beautiful, it's easy to use, and from a cognitive behavioral perspective,
Awesome.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah. There's a
Have you been able to sort of
What?
protect that type of technology at all from, like, is it
we have
is it unique to you?
So I think it's difficult, like a lot of software, it's not much of it is patented
Right.
or like can be patented. I think what's unique for us is our access to our data, because we have a very large audience and it's all women. And they give us this information where, like, if you were just trying to do this stuff now, it'd be very difficult to aggregate enough data to be able to actually make good recommendations. And so I think the moat here is the data that we do have. And a lot of folks are trying to do insights. Insights are only valuable if they're contextually relevant to you in that moment when you're receiving the insight, and you have to know how to package it in a way that's going to be easily understood. And so I think that's one thing that we've done really well. I think a lot of folks are trying to like add generative AI into their experiences, and we've played with a lot of generative AI. And the problem with it is, like, you get paragraphs of data that no one's reading anymore. People want visual cues. It's like it's different. And so I think one of the parts of this special sauce, which I'm sure folks will copy, but is being able to create these really unique insights that tell you something and grab you. Like, we know that we're in an attention world, and like we have to grab people's attention, and so we create these experiences that are very attention grabbing to help you to engage and to check in even when you're not working out.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your time,
Thank
guys.
you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Mark.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Ashley, it's a pleasure.
Great to see you
Good
now.
stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you. It's fun.
All right.